If you're a woman farmer who has ever felt the need to hide or change yourself to fit in with the men around you, you'll want to listen in as I chat with dairy farmer Natasha Stein Sutherland on this episode of Food, Flowers, and Fun. We are sponsored, as always, by Penlight for Farmers, helping you to live purposeful farm lives rich in time, energy, and abundance. If you're the woman who does it all, farm work, housework, bookwork, homework, getting up at the break of dawn, this is the podcast for you.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Get away from the cares of the day. Free stock, root stock, feed stock, seed stock. Chat with women around the world who raise food, flowers, and fun. With your host, Kay Castrataro. That's me. Welcome back to Food, Flowers, and Fun. I am your host, Kay Castrataro, and today I am with Natasha Stein Sutherland, who is an owner-operator of Stein Farms. Natasha, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So you come from a farming background. You've got an amazing story, and rather than me summarize it and not do it justice, why don't you just tell us who you are, how you got into farming, and Vavochka says hello.
So I am the third generation on Stein Farms, and I love to say that actually I'm a ninth generation farmer on my mom's side in the North America. The story is that my grandfather on my dad's side was a cabbage farmer, and he had two failed crops in the early 50s, which put him out of business where he was. So he was able to sell his land close to Chi-Line, New York, and was able to purchase what we sit on as the home footprint today of 121 acres, I believe.
Yep.
And it came with two cows. And he very cutely had no idea what to do with said cows. So Augie McGinnis and Bud came up and taught my grandpa, who was also Bud, how to milk cows. And a passion began.
Oh,
and through the years, through 5 sons, through all of us grandchildren, the farm has grown and grown. And a couple of purchases have happened along the way. A couple of retirements have happened along the way. And here we are now, third generation, fully functioning, running as owners on the farm. 1,800 mature cows being milked in 2 different parlors on 2 different sites.
Wow.
And we're raising the 4th generation here on the farm. So weekends, you'll find 7 little kids running around, from my 14-year-old all the way down to the 10-week-old. So It is truly a family business.
Right. Oh, that is so fascinating. And the family businesses have both the beauty of being like in the DNA, and it's a part of who you are. And there are also some challenges that go along with that. So talk to me about some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. You guys have done some really interesting succession planning. Like, you've got just all kinds of neat things that are going on your farm. Like, I love how the different generations and even the different individuals within generations work together and kind of divvy up certain responsibilities. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And my grandfather started it way back in the 70s. He looked at his sons that had come home to the farm and decided that if they didn't have any skin in the game, they weren't going to sweat as hard for it. So my dad and my Uncle Dale were in their late 20s, early 30s, and they were made full partners. It wasn't that kind of holding the purse strings away from the next generation. It was delegating responsibility very early, not normal. And our parents, so that second generation, very intelligently, smartly, kindly, for their better or good, did the same thing. So I was actually the last one to be able to be made a partner because I lived overseas for 7 years in New Zealand. And it shaped who we are as a business. We're progressive. We're constantly challenging kind of norms. We're not going to sit back and just do what is ho-hum, because we've got that young blood, that young excitement in the decision-making seats. And I really value that. And then speaking to how we divvy and divide, I always introduce the partners this way. My dad is the dreamer. My dad is the engineer. He is the brain behind the how that we get things done. in the 80s, Farm Credit would describe us as a construction company that had dairy cows because we built everything. Other than setting about 10 poles around here, everything has been built within the family, which
Wow,
I just absolutely treasure.
that's amazing.
And then my cousin Nathan, he is feed in, manure out, so nutrient side of life. And he's also a hunter, and that's really, really important to him.
Mm.
So you got to look at both sides of that aspect, right? Like he is dedicated to what he does, and he also is dedicated to making sure that we are crop rotating to be able to keep his harvest on both ends perfect and
Wow.
ready for the future generations.
Oh, so there's like a huge environmental component to that that is not just, it's again, it's an ecosystem approach. It's not just looking at how do we make the farm business happen, it's how do we make the farm business happen and keep the wildlife able
Yeah.
to really function as well.
And to flourish.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
turkeys are back up in numbers like they haven't been in a number of years. You know, he is always working with trappers to get rid of coyote populations to make sure that we have got, you know, young deer coming up through the growth in the chain. It is a true passion of his.
Yeah.
And then the environmental stewardship side of that comes into play as well. We've been recognized by Genesee County Soil and Water for our efforts. Um, we're we're very much aware that we're going to make the soil better every year so that way our children have the ability to keep farming long after we're gone.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
And
what
then
are
to that
oh well,
regard,
you no, you
no, you're
finish up with the family first because I'll get off on a rabbit trail. I do that. So so finish sharing our partners.
Yep. So my brother Jared is our diesel mechanic. If it bleeds black, it's his. And he went away to school for diesel. And truly, again, it is something that gets him going. Currently, he and his wife are retrofitting and rebuilding my grandmother's and grandfather's house here on the property. And he's putting in a pedal tractor track in the basement for his children. I mean, Gearhead is his middle name. And then there's me.
Wow.
I do the cows, and I truly have a passion for our animals. And we've definitely not stuck to the status quo. We're not a Holstein herd anymore. We're a Jerstein, a Hojo, crossbred. I missed my little New Zealand crosses that we had that I could look over everyone's backs. So we've definitely scaled down size of our herd, but kept components, kept volume. And at this point, we're making 100 pounds when you do energy corrected milk. And we're still just tracking up.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So I totally love this. I love this because well, for so many reasons. Because first of all, it's really hard on a family farm to do that generational transfer and to have the transfer like the way you describe it. It's not actually a transfer. It is a true partnership. It's
Oh,
your
absolutely.
generation and the younger generation working together, which I think is just such a beautiful model. And like, if we could all make that happen, how much happier would our farm lives be instead of, feeling that I feel like there's often a possessiveness and a desire to be in charge that because it's denied the younger generation so long that once they finally get it, usually because of illness or death, um, they are then desperate to hold on to it because it feels like they've finally arrived. They finally became like the boss. And that then means that they don't want to share that decision making with the people behind them because they never had that ability. So can you talk to me a little bit about how the decision making works? Like you're talking, I didn't count that well. Are there five or six?
There's four of us in actively in the partnership right now. My uncle Dale has retired about 4 years ago. Um, and again, watching him retire, he struggled for a year or two trying to figure out where his place was because it's a supporting role at this point. You know, he's not necessarily a direct decision maker,
Mm,
but he has years of absolute asset that we need to utilize
yeah,
to figure out some of our conversations to this day. So
sure.
it's like you said, it's definitely partnership and working together. So when we made the decision to roll forward with our new rotary that we're constructing, you know, it was a gut feeling conversation start of, you know, we know that our parlor is aging out. The second dairy that we purchased in 2024, that parlor had basically not been invested in since it was installed in 1974. That
Oh,
parlor is aging out. So we knew that new had to happen, but how did we get to those to the decision of rotary? How did we get to the decision of Beco? How did we get to the decision of location?
Yeah.
Um, Constant conversation. Um, my gut would have told me I'm not a robot person. Um, my my personal experience, having lived in New Zealand and run swing parlors and rotary parlors and carousels where you're on the inside and the cows are on the outside,
Yep.
I knew my favorite. I knew the efficiency that we could get with a rotary. And again, we're dealing with New York State overtime laws. So the concept of maybe oversizing a rotary, like we oversize parlors in New Zealand and using them for only half the day
Mm.
and letting them sit vacant for half the day, really spoke to me because it's a way for us to help mitigate overtime costs in a way that makes sense for our business.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a lot of putting puzzle pieces together
Yeah.
through a lot of different conversations. The Beco story was really, Dad and I went to a meeting down in Florida and didn't have a great gut feel with a couple of businesses, had a great conversation with Bomatic. We're kind of sold on Bomatic. And then the engineer brain in him spoke up. And so we did one more tour out to a Beco Rotary. And when you hear that the nylon balls underneath the parlor and the deck itself was like 24 years old, had never been changed out, the robust nature of
Yeah.
the actual build spoke to him so much.
Sure.
And you got to listen to that. You gotta let everyone's knowledge base speak and be heard.
Yeah,
That's a
well,
lot of
that's what I'm hearing. That's totally what I'm hearing is that, you had your own set of experiences and preferences, um, but you didn't make that decision by yourself and bring that and say, oh, this is what we're going to do because this is what I like. There was still that openness to learn, and there was the ability to listen to other people's expertise and to fold that all together. And I kind of like what you're saying about some of it being a gut feeling, and like I didn't like we just didn't resonate with some of these businesses that we talked to. And I think maybe that's something that I don't think farmers take into consideration enough.
I
Just
think
that
farm
gut
hers
level
do.
attraction. Talk to me. What? Oh,
I think
farmers
farm
do.
hers do.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me about the difference between women and male farmers because it's a thing. It is a thing. I mean there's a reason that most of the guests that I have on this show are women, and it's not that I hate men. It's that uh women are more likely to resonate with a lot of the things that I'm passionate about. And so we all end up kind of attracting, and we have a similar way of looking at the world. And even when their ways are different from mine, I can totally understand where they're coming from and I can respect those differences. So,
Yeah.
so
I think we do
talk to
see
me
it a
about
little
how
more.
women learn to trust that instinct more.
I think we also see the world a little more holistically. And so we take in those cues. We take in people's willingness to meet us where we're at in terms of like, yeah, I am a female farmer. I might not be the technical one. I'm the cow one, but guess what? My opinion matters just as much as the other three guys I'm standing next to. I'm not behind them, I'm beside them. And I think some of those gut feelings are really relevant. And the other thing I think women are really good at is we bring people with us. We're not competitive in the way that some farmers will try to outpace someone. I want you with me. I want you literally standing beside me, a united front in this decision, so that we were all comfortable when we get to that yes point and signing that check that we have to pay out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of that with the farm hers is real. We manage humans differently too in terms of our staff. I went to a servant
Talk to me
leadership.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so servant leadership got discussed at a meeting one time, and then I went to another meeting that I found about it. And I love the concept that, in agriculture, we don't have hundreds of dollars to throw at people. We don't have big, accomplishments available and recognition abilities available. But I can look you in the eye and say, I respect you and I respect your hard work and I appreciate what you do. And I'm going to stand next to you and do it with you.
Mm.
And that I think speaks even more, as a team here, the leadership does not lord over anyone. We work beside and we will work under you, actually. If you want to take the lead in X and you want to run the mower today, my brother will go run in a 10-wheeler and it's okay. Like you got to let people
Yeah.
have their recognition in the only ways that we can.
Yeah, you've mentioned, I mean, we spoke, oh gosh, probably almost a year ago, for the first time. And I remember you mentioning your brother and that he was one of those who definitely said, um, any job that anybody else does, I do on this farm as well. So, like,
Mhm.
what does that look like in practice? Because I mean, I've grown up fifth generation farm kid here, so I've grown up on the farm too, and I have seen poor and better examples of how to support your help to feel empowered and to get the best out of them, but also to give the best to them, you know. So it is like a mutually beneficial relationship, and sometimes people really struggle with that. So how do you manage that, and what does that look like for the people who are afraid that they're going to lose their authority if they take a servant leadership approach?
So I start my day the same time the staff start their day. So I meet them right at 5 a.m. as we're all walking in the door together. We are all clutching our cups of coffee, praying to God that kicks in at some point quickly and get on with our day together, right?
Yeah.
Um, if someone is trying to get cows pushed up to the holding area, but they know that they're behind, I will take over so that way they can hustle back up to the parlor and get three people back milking. It is lending a hand wherever you see the need.
Mm,
And sometimes letting my jobs slide and I'll get them done whenever I get them done to make sure that theirs gets accomplished on the schedule that needs set. Because that milking parlor, that is the heartbeat, right? So that's focus number one. Feeding, focus number two. If I got Gates blocking our feed tractor, stop what I'm doing, reset, make sure that he's able to get where he needs to get, and then I'll get back to my task second.
yeah.
And it is I don't feel like I lose respect. I feel like I've gained more because everyone knows they can come to me with X issue or X problem or approachable.
Yeah.
Um, my Spanish, I'm working super hard at all the time to get better, to the point that I found a retired high school Spanish teacher and she's going to start working with me once a week because I know my conjugations aren't perfect.
Oh, yeah,
So just trying really hard to be cognizant of also meeting people where they're,
sure. Oh,
yeah,
I love so much about that. And it's such a human approach. Like I hate to use that word, but I kind of feel
but
like
it
in
is.
the last, especially in the last couple of years, I do feel like there is a need for us to actually recognize what it means to be human. And you know what does distinguish us from the animals, and that this empathy and this caring and compassion for each other is supposed to be a mark of our humanity, and it isn't power is not a mark of our humanity, empathy is, and that power does not create community, and community is actually one of the strongest forces we have. And I love what you were saying about you know, the parlor being the heartbeat. And the image I had was that there are certain tasks that need to be done, and those tasks are the priority. And so, how we work together to accomplish those tasks is more important than who's doing any one particular job at any one moment. And I seem to remember you saying that your staff will come to you with ideas for improvements on the farm as well. And can you talk to what's it like when that happens?
It's
And
useful.
have there
It's
been
sometimes
some good ones that you've implemented? Talk to me about that.
Well, number one, it's useful, right? Because we got to talk about who are the frontline workers, who's actually doing the things that we need done every day. It's not always me. I very rarely get pulled into the main milking parlor anymore. So if someone's in there and they're like, hey, every time we let out pen four, this happens.
Mm.
Can we do something like this instead? I appreciate it. I'm grateful. And next time we have a staff meeting, we'll talk about, hey, so and so saw X. Can we change it to Y? And just give them the recognition too that hey, it was your idea, it's not my idea. I'm not going to steal it. I'm going to say thanks, and if you guys have, and if anyone else in the room has a better idea, let's talk about it. um so going back to like the rotary build, 8 months ago I threw the blueprints on the table in the middle of the meeting and I said, okay, here's our future, here's our plan, and I want you guys to all kind of start thinking about how we're going to move cows different and how there are certain pinch points we have today, like our holding area is too small. So how do we get ourselves mentally prepared for where we're going to be in a year's time? What's going to help us, what's going to hurt us, what's going to hinder us. If you guys see anything right off the bat that just feels wrong, say it, trying to bring them with me, you
And
know?
who was involved in that staff meeting? Like not
Night
names or
manager,
anything, but
night guys, day milkers, calf guys. So to be
so
able to be able
the
to,
ground level staff, like you're
yeah.
not talking about just the farm partners, you're talking about the ground level staff. You came in and you said, "This is what we're planning, folks. Let's see how we're going to make this together. What are the problems? What are the problems you see? And what are solutions that you see?" Oh my gosh. I
Well,
love
the silly little things that make your parlor staff crazy. We've got hooks that dangle that hold the milking units
Yep,
when they're
yep,
not actively milking, right?
yep.
And
Those
they
are
become
hooks.
unwelded very simply because they're constantly being hit at, right? And I'm like, guys, we can either deal with it for, X number of months, or I can take the time and do the parlor downtime and we can go through and fix everything, but that's going to put you behind on your day. Which way do you want to go? And they're like, we're going to handle it because we know it's all going to get better. And because there's that light, because there's that optimism, I think everyone's so excited about the fact that, in a month or so here, yeah, in about 3 weeks, we're gonna start digging foundations. Like they're
Wow,
so
how
excited
exciting.
for that momentum that it's like, okay, we can do this because the carrot's out there in front of us. I'm such a carrot person, not a stick.
Yeah. Well, and again, that was I'm thinking about the different ways that that could have gone because, communications both on farm and off farm is one of my big passions for farmers. And that could have gone two ways. Like you could have ignored the fact that people were complaining about these hooks coming undone and just pretended it wasn't there. And you could have made the decision, oh, we're going to be resolving that so we don't have to deal with it.
Hmm.
And while you were looking ahead and saying, oh, this is a problem that's going to be resolved, your staff would not have been feeling that way. If that had not
Totally.
been addressed, your staff would have been feeling like we keep talking about this problem. It's a big issue and they ignore us. And morale like tanks, people's, willingness to put up with crap tanks. And then every other little thing that goes is going to be another, yep, the boss just does not care about the working people. And on the flip side, you could have said, well, we're going to take some downtime, we're going to fix this, and you're going to be behind, but you're going to have to catch up. And again, that would have been a decision that maybe you thought you were making in their best interests, but it's not the decision that would have appealed to them. And so again, they'd feel like if anybody just asked us, we'd have said, we can weather this until we get the new parlor, not the end of the world. But you
Yep.
did what was so beautiful is you heard their problems, you thought through the solutions, and then you presented it to them and said, here are the options. Pick the one that works for you. And you weren't like attached to one solution or the other. You were, I'll do either one, what works for you. How empowering is that to them and how encouraging to them?
I think foundationally, the gift that my parents gave all of us was that we were told we weren't allowed to come home straight away after university. We were all told to go off and go be someone else's staff member. So
Wow.
my path was weird, and I went overseas and I did my year in New Zealand, which then turned into 7 because I met a cute boy.
Yep, tell us
And
about the
and
cute boy in a
that
bar, right?
cute boy in bar. And then we brought home 2 souvenirs, Daniel and Lockwood, a couple of years later. But that foundation of being under people for a number of years and knowing what a good manager was and learning what
Hmm.
a piss poor manager could do to staff and learning how I wanted to manage people and then coming home feeling like I had a lot on my shoulders to carry and a lot of expectation to kind of go against and then figuring out, you know what? It's my story and it's how I'm going to run this place and kind of putting down the battle axe and just being me.
Ah.
That was where I really finally shined.
What was the thing that gave you the confidence to finally do that? Because for women especially, but I think women farmers, especially women farmers, because I hear that you've got a whole lot of men in your decision making circle, and that it sounds like you're kind of the only woman who is in that partnership role. Am I correct about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, my mom is our CEO, our chief emotional officer. She's here as office support all the
yep,
time, but she's
yep.
technically not a partner. So yeah, I am the only female up here with the boys.
So that's, I mean, that's a really challenging position to be in, especially when they're all family, because I find that our family tends to pigeonhole us very early when we're kids. And it's often very hard to break out of those patterns with our family, even if we're like intentionally trying to be ourselves. There's always this like how other people perceive us or other people want us to be that is always a tension there. So what was that tipping point, if there was a tipping point, or what was the process like that gave you the confidence to finally say, you know what, I understand how you think I should be, and I understand that that's not who I need to be, and I'm going to be me. How did that happen? What did that look like?
It's a long story.
Well, we love long stories here. These are the juicy ones. These are the important conversations.
Right, and it's juicy. So my uncle Kenny, so we'd always kind of had each other's back, right, in every generation. So my uncle Dale had his son Nate, my dad had his son Jared, my uncle Kenny, he had me, and we all kind of thought the similar paths, worked the same kind of routine. Dale fed cows. Dad can also do diesel mechanics. Kenny was a cow guy.
Okay.
And Kenny died in a farm accident. And
Oh.
I suddenly didn't have my guy, my back support, my human.
Mm.
And I got panicked. And within 12 hours of the accident happening, my husband resigned from his job and came on farm. And we worked hand in hand for 2 years. And that in itself is dumb challenging because, you know, traditional marriage roles
Right.
didn't quite fit, right? Like I wasn't under him, he wasn't under me. We had to figure out how to do this, and that was really challenging. And so after 2 years of us kind of pushing our way through, trying to divide but not dividing well, and then starting to take work home with us all the time,
Yeah.
we decided the right thing to do was for him to go back out into his sphere
Mm.
and then me to stay back where I was on the farm. But that friction, that tension, that 2 years of just, oh my God, we're doing this. We're doing this on our own now. And the guardrails are off and we're just doing this. And that taught me to be me, to be really authentic, to own the fact that I will sit and cry after I load a favorite cow onto the cattle wagon to leave. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That I will hug on baby when she's just walking out of the parlor and she stops and she turns to see me, and I will 1027, that's baby, and I will stop and I will have my moment with her, and recognizing staff for doing a good job greeting Mario in the morning with a hug because we've been working together now for 15 years,
Mm. Yeah, it's
recognizing
really,
each other as people.
yeah.
Yeah, and so that friction
Mm.
kind of ground back the rough edges and let me just be me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's,
And
yeah,
then the
it's
best part
amazing.
is now when Richard stepped away, he landed the perfect role and he's gone from being a sole staff member in a quasi government organization to now the director, 7 staff under him. He's blossoming, heading to DC for a little federal recognition. Like the guy's doing
Ooh.
amazing. So watching him come through it better too, I love that for our whole family.
Well, and isn't that what we really want? Like, and I think this is a beautiful
Mhm.
example of, the Bible calls it iron sharpening iron, that those hard times and that friction is actually what we really need to grow. And we can use that friction, excuse me, we can use that friction either to get bitter and to get stuck and to really double down and be like, I'm not changing, I am just doing what I want to do. Or we can use it to look ahead and to grow and to say, huh, is there a better way to do this? There has to be a better way to do this. And that's what I see, is that was the, okay, we did this and it didn't work for us. And yes, we've learned from it. So we're going to take what we've learned from it, but then we're going to grow in our own individual ways. And I love how like you were praising him right away, saying, "Hey, look at what he's doing. He's getting recognition." Like again, it's not a competition. Like we don't have to one of us getting recognition does not mean that everybody else is now, subpar. It's that whole rising tides lift all boats. Like as we lift each other up, we're lifting ourselves up as well. And I just think that's amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about how you balance your parenting and your farming because that's something, yeah. Because I know that is a challenging thing, and you're talking about getting up at 5, and well, not getting up at 5. You are heading into the parlor at 5 with your
Right.
staff, which means you're probably up at 4:30 at the latest, I would imagine. And then you've got kids to get off to school and kids that come home from the bus and kids that might have
Yeah.
sports and academic stuff. So how do you balance all of that and still take care of you?
I'm going to be real honest with the entire world. I am not the primary parent. My husband is a gem, and he gets up with me at 4:30 and comes to the farm. And my best joke I'll ever tell you is my husband's my breeder. He only gave me 2 bulls, but he makes lots of heifers for me here at the farm. And then at 6 o'clock on the dot, he's back in the house, and the kids are up and showered and on the school bus. And then he goes on and does his normal day. And then around 4:30, quarter to 5, whatever time he rolls in, if there's more cows to breed, he's back to the farm. And my day promptly ends at 4 o'clock. No matter what is going on, my staff know I've got to punch out. Like it is mom time. So, and then my Tuesday half days are just precious to me. I make sure I pick up the kids every Tuesday from school. And I do the running, the basketball, the musical, the late night, that is my shift. But the early morning, that is my husband's shift. And again, to have a partner, a true partner who gets it and who meets me where I am, it's been awesome. It took a lot when we were both here on farm. We would jokingly have Tuesday morning grandma because Tuesday mornings, like it was all boots on, in the barn. There was no way. So my mom would come down at 6 and get kids up and get kids on bus while we were farming. And that's okay. You got to lean into the assets around you.
Oh, I love
Um,
that. I talk about having it takes a team. Farming takes a team. And some of that team is definitely that support system for the family. Like you need to have that. You need to have those people and I often talk to farmers about the myth that, I have to do it all by myself. Like if I don't do it myself, then I'm somehow failing. And I'm like, no, no, shift that mindset to I'm smart enough to use all the resources available to me. Like I've got resources, I'm using them, and that's making me more productive, more balanced,
yeah.
more grounded. I think grounded is probably a better word than balanced. I've kind of rejected that idea that we can ever attain balance, whatever that looks like. I think it's a
No.
constant, balance more as a verb than as a noun, like we're balanced, that we just keep shifting our weight.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. So, no, my relationship with my boys is great. They are very independent souls because we work and then but also now they're big enough they're working. Daniel's 14. So he mowed lawn all summer, last summer, in between the homestead farm, the satellite farm, adjacent barns we've purchased. He could have a 20-hour week if he wanted it. So that responsibility, that concept that if I earn, then it's mine to play with was awesome. Great learning tool. So I've got one boy growing at the 99th percentile, and I've got one boy growing at the 25th percentile. So Lockwood's still not quite 100 pounds. So he can't set off the sensor for the safety seat for the lawnmower. So he's my cow kid. He and I can walk into a pen of cows and he can help me get a cow that's got mastitis from one end to the other, swing a gate, get her where she needs to go. So yeah, weekends he'll be in that role with me. And again, it's another asset. Drying off cows on Fridays. The moment it's summer, I'll be at the barn at quarter 7, Mom. Dry offs. I'm like, yep, dry offs. Good job.
Oh,
He
wow.
he's my right hand little guy. It's awesome. It's
Yeah, and
awesome.
it sounds like they're gravitating towards their areas of interest as well as,
Mhm.
what they're physically, emotionally, mentally suited for at any given time. And I think that's another really beautiful thing that I see in the way that your family operates is that, and your farm as a whole, because you have, I mean, how many employees, non-family employees do you have?
There are 18 full-time staff here at Stein Farms, and then our satellites, it's called Boulder, and there's 9 full-time staff members there. And then we bring in another 4 part-time seasonal when it's truck season, when it's cropping season.
Okay, so 27 to 31 people that are being
Yeah.
managed and who feel a degree of, I use the word ownership, but
But they do. I think that's a
involvement,
great way to put it. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
like they're
I
not looking
want
at
them
this
to
as
own it.
just a job. And you said some of these people have been working with you, what, 15 years?
Mhm.
So that's a really low turnover for agricultural workers. Like this is not something where
We've
they come
got
and they work.
longevity.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've definitely got longevity. It's in both sets, both farms, we've kind of settled into a really solid crew of people. And that in itself is a blessing to not have to constantly retrain, but now it's also, hey, let's give you more skill sets because you guys are with us longer and let's recognize that you can do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And then that makes you a better resource. And that's a gift. That's an
Yeah, and
absolute gift.
again, I think that's one of the really important things that I'd like farmers to take away from this is that, we sometimes look at help as like almost in an extractive sort of way that we're getting something from the help. They're coming to do something for us, which is true. And at the same time, I think the ideal model is that we are also giving something back to them, hopefully in more than just the form of a paycheck, because as you so rightly noticed in the beginning, the money working on farms is usually not too great. And so money by itself is not going to really support overall well-being in a farm such situation. But when you can give more autonomy, when you can build skills, when you can build a sense of ownership and a sense of partnership with your help, then that time that you put in to building that relationship and building those skills, it pays off exponentially for everybody. Like the farm help has more skills, so God forbid they have to or they move or something else happens, they are now a more marketable commodity, which is a blessing for them. But it's
Yep.
also a blessing for you because you've got better staff, they last longer, and it costs less money to keep staff over an extended period of time, even if you end up paying them more, because you're not taking that learning curve, which, as we all know, those first few months of new help can be like a make or break
Ah,
thing. Yeah, really
ah,
rough, really
holy
rough.
moly. Yes. No, we have one position over at Boulder that seemed to be a revolving door for
Mm,
about 4 months and 3 different people and just lost your mind. It was probably more than like 10 months. And
mm.
you lost your mind because it was just like constant, okay, I told you this. No, wait, I told the last guy this. Shoot. And that constant of how do I help you be better and want to be here. And it, yeah, staff training is hard.
Yeah.
It's wearing, it is draining. So getting somebody in and getting them established and getting them comfortable that they've got this,
Mm.
that took some time.
And what are some of your best practices for staff training? What are the things that you find work better or worse when you're training your staff for longevity?
I think it's also figuring out who on your team is an internal leader that maybe you don't always recognize or like have labeled that way.
Mhm.
So I don't have a parlor manager, but I know who is my person who will get the routine perfect every single time. And pairing them almost like a mentor.
Mm.
Skid steer driving. I know exactly who I want to teach skid steer driving, who is my most trusted operator. And again, that mentoring type position, like, hey, Rolando, new guy, you're gonna go over here and hang out with Tom. And you're gonna watch him and you're gonna mirror him the second time. And then the third time he's gonna walk beside you and make sure that you are comfortable understanding where you're headed next.
Mm.
And that mentoring, I think, is probably the key that we've found for
Yeah.
staff training.
Yeah, and it's not a one-off like what I mean, mentoring in itself is not a one-off. It's a longer term investment um from both people. But that I think your come watch, think through it, then we'll finally start handing over the reins a little bit, but you're going to be watched, you're going to be, monitored. That
Yeah.
process I think is so important because I can't tell you how many times on any type of farm I see people say, "Well, I told you that. I told you how to do this." I used to run into this, as a kid growing up on a vegetable farm. There were certain things that you just knew, and you don't know how
Mhm.
you knew it. You just been doing it your whole life. And so by the time you were 12 or 13, like you didn't need somebody to tell you how large a zucchini squash should be before it was picked. Like you just knew it. You looked at it, you held it in your hand, and you were like, tomorrow.
Done.
Needs to go now. Like you just knew, oh, we missed that one. Whoops. Like you knew it
Hmm.
intuitively almost. And then you'd get somebody in, often who was older than you, and you'd be like, well, you just kind of like it's like this long, you kind of
You
measure it
do.
here. And then you'd set them off and set them loose in the squash, and then they'd come home and they'd like squash like this. And the next day you go out and all of the squash are like this, and you're like, well, what's the matter with them? No, that was not a problem with the help. That was a problem with the training because we
Yes.
weren't there. We were expecting them to be given an instruction once on something they've never done before and somehow get it perfect. And that's like an unreasonable expectation. And yet we do it all the time because we think, well, everybody should know how to do this. This is so basic. I never had to learn this. Well, you learned it through 12 years of living in the field, or
Yeah, that
20 or
innate
30.
knowledge. Right, that innate knowledge of I know how to walk around cows. Some people just don't have it, and you have to show them, and you have to work with them, and you have to watch them. And my 14-year-old doesn't do it. Cannot do it. He will come out of every pen completely covered, head to toe, has no idea how to walk around cows. And you can try and you can teach. And then there's also that certain point where you have to also just let it go and be like, there's going to be a better role for you somewhere else.
Yep. Oh,
And
I love
that
that.
has
Yes.
happened specifically. Like I'm very persnickety about calf guys. You've
Mm.
got to be gentle, but you also have to be fast paced. And how do you find that balance? And how do you get that across without sounding like hurry up and get it done, but don't rush them? Like it's the most ridiculous set of statements in the world, right? So I mean, it's making
And
sure
yet there
they're
are so many little strategies. Like if you're handling calves and you're bottle feeding, there are so many strategies where you can make them drink a little faster, but you're not really
Mhm.
prodding them. You're just making sure they're more efficient as they're eating. But it's like subtle little things that you either figure out and can
Mhm.
do, or sometimes you just don't have the hands for it. I had draft horses and I grew up on a cattle farm. So that right there, like anybody who knows cattle people, like dairy people and cow people usually are not the same. My dad always looked at horses as hay burners. And he would like try driving my horses. And I'm like, you can't drive a horse. And he's
Nope.
like, he would treat them like a cow. And I'm like, they're not cows. I'm like, okay, cows, you go behind them, you wave, they go where you want them to go. Yes, you do that with them, unless they're show cows and they've learned to halter lead. I'm like, horses, you're not going to do that
No.
with 90% of your horses. You got to go to their head and you got to lead them from the head. But
Mhm.
trying to get him to, he would watch me with them and he's like, everything you do is counterintuitive. And I'm like, yes, because it's counterintuitive for a cow, but it's completely intuitive for a horse. Like you approach
Yep.
their shoulder, you talk, like it's just all of these things that you do that with a cow, she's going to spin on you and she's going to go the opposite direction. It's comical when you've lived in both worlds and you see both animals and you can adapt to both animals. But when you can't, when you or won't or whatever, where it's like, no, we have to do it all this one way. Okay, so horses aren't your thing. Just don't even try to work with them because it's going to frustrate you, it's going to frustrate them, and you're going to end up getting hurt. Like bad
Yep.
things are going to happen. So it's like with your son, listen, if you haven't figured out by now that you've either got to be right up close to that cow or you've got to be way far away so you're not getting kicked and spun around on, and like if you don't know where that perfect sweet spot is, stay out of there because you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Nope. And you
You're going to
recognize
cause
that
chaos
because,
with the cows, and then everything's going to be a mess.
yep, yep. Nope, nope. It's, yeah, it's
Oh,
letting them also learn for themselves a little bit, right? Because they are yours. So you want them to have those learning opportunities.
yeah. Yeah, and
Mm.
that's a tough thing. That is a tough thing to determine where those learning opportunities and safety and, just trying to fit a round peg in a square hole and all of, like that's a really sensitive thing, and that's something we could talk hours about, how to know when you're in the right place on the farm and the wrong place on the farm. But
Yes.
I'm looking at the clock and I'm saying, "Ugh, I promised you an hour and I know you're busy. So I'm gonna have to wrap things up, but we're gonna have you on again, Natasha, because you're just amazing.
Thank
And
you.
I want to start by thanking you so much for your time, because I really think that, I mean, we didn't even talk about your time in New Zealand and the difference between your New Zealand experience and your experience here. So, I mean, there's just a wealth of stuff we could talk about here. But in honor of your time, I'm going to wrap us up by asking you the question I ask all of my guests, which is, if you had one piece of advice that you thought every farmer should know, what would that be?
Oh. Um, have a plan.
Mm,
Have a plan for the future. I mean, I was blessed to be born into this business, right? And I recognize that. Um, we've had a there's some neighbors that don't have a plan, and it's been really scary to watch. And I only want the best outcome for every farm out there. I don't care what type you are. I don't care what you raise. I only want the best outcomes for all of us because there's not enough of us left. So have a plan for your future. Figure out those next generations, steps, how you're going to protect your land,
mm.
because literally there's not enough of us around here.
Yeah, and there are lots of resources, especially right now. I mean, we've had farm succession planners on here, and we've had farm
Mhm.
mediators, and every state has got an ag mediation that will help with, and succession planning. I think that's all wrapped up in the same
Yep.
pot of federal money. So access it definitely, because it is not something that every family does as intuitively as your family has done. And I know it, saying intuitively does not at all take into account all of the hours of work and discussions that go
That
into
went
that.
into
So
it.
again,
Right.
another episode we could talk all about what it's like to have your family succession plans would be an amazing case study. But again, that would be like a whole hour. So, oh, Natasha, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and being here. And everybody out there, thank you for joining us. And we will see you next time on Food, Flowers, and Fun. Bye.
Bye.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Farmers calling, our show is all done. Goodbye, farewell, so long, adieu. See you next week, same time, same place for Food, Flowers, and Fun. Go in peace. Visit us at www.penlightfarmers.com.